Welcome to Gail at Night. I'm Gail, proud member of Women Against Paternity Fraud, and your advocate for mandatory DNA testing at birth. I want to share this story that highlights why this matters, drawing from the story of an Illinois father, Jay Skibbens, who discovered through DNA testing that his two sons weren't biologically his, but yet ultimately secured 50-50 custody. Here's a clip of Jay where he shares how he went from learning that his sons weren't his to an outcome of shared custody.
What I'm going to talk about today is how I got to be primary parent. And I would imagine that a lot of you are in here to figure out how you can do the same thing, right? You want to become primary parent. You want to become, you want the kids more, right? And I would imagine a lot of you are in here to learn exactly that. So what I'm going to do is talk through how it happened for me. So what I'll do is I'll tell you my story first, short version of it, and then I'll share you how I got to be primary parent, okay? So what you have to know about me is that I am not the boy's biological dad. I have two sons. I am not biological dad. I did not find that out until they were 15 and 30 months old. So I was, their mom and I, her name is Rachel, we get along great now. We weren't married, we weren't in a relationship, we were friends with benefits. So for some of you that you might not know what that was or is, we basically hooked up. And when I talk to you about unmet needs, when I talk to you about like healing your wounds, I was seeking validation. One of my unmet needs was validation and love. And I sought my validation and love through sex. And that's what led me to Rachel. And we had a very sexually toxic relationship. I think I was using it to feel better about myself. And from what I can gather, she was using it to start a family. But neither one of us were coming to it from a healthy place. So we had Elliot, and that was wild because it was not planned. Obviously, it was not according to what I wanted. I didn't want to have kids at that point. I always wanted to be a dad, but I didn't want to have kids then, and I didn't want to have kids with her. So, but like from Jump Street, we co-parented. So like from birth, we were co-parenting. We didn't try to make it work for the kids. We didn't try to stay together. From birth, we were co-parenting. So what that means is that the early stages, like I was there for the doctor's appointments, I was there for the birth, and then after Elliot was born, I would go over there as often as I could, help out, but the baby would stay with her. Elliot would stay with her overnight until he was about, I think 6 months old is when I could take him back to my house. 6 months old, I could take him back to my house. I think maybe about a year old, we started doing overnights. And then by the time like a year, before a year and a half, we were doing 50-50 with Elliot. And then Sawyer was born 15 months after Elliot, and that was like another shock. We went from having sex a lot, and then those of you who are trying to break the relationship off, but you keep going back, we kept dipping into that well, not nearly as often as before, but enough that I thought that we had made another baby. But it turns out that neither one was biologically mine. And I found that out when they were 30 months and 15 months. And for those of you who are curious if the kids know, what's up, boo? They do. They often give me shit about me not being their real dad, right? That's like one of the things that comes out when they're upset or when they're trying to get a reaction out of me. They will tell, well, you're not even my real dad. So that is, they know it. So at 15 and 30 months was when we actually first wrote out a parenting plan. At, like, when the boys were 15 and 30 months old, that's when we first had a parenting plan. We didn't have one before. We really just talked it through. We basically just we made it work. We talked, we compromised, we made it work up until then. But when I found out that they weren't biologically mine, I wanted to have a parenting plan. How did I find out? To be completely honest and transparent, there's podcasts I've been on where I talk about this. There was a third child, and there was a lot of, I think that everybody has that moment where where the red flags are too much. The red flags are too much to ignore, and you have to face reality about the situation and what's happening. I don't like saying it in a way that talks down about her, because I don't have any ill feelings towards her, and I'm actually really thankful for how everything played out. But basically, there was enough doubt and enough, I had to face the facts, and I got that third child DNA tested and found out that that child wasn't mine. And then once I found that out, it just that was like the thread that got pulled. And once that thread was pulled, everything started to unravel, and I just had to question everything. So I wasn't gonna be able to live with myself if I didn't know about the boys. So that I found out shortly after I tested the baby. And then, I found out that the boys weren't mine. And so before I get into how I became primary parent, the notes that I did write out and what I did want to share with you is that there's no secret. Those of you who are wanting like an overnight or a Band-Aid solution, or you do this and you'll get it, that's not how life works. That's not how co-parenting works. That's not how family court works. There's nothing that you're gonna do that can guarantee you to get more primary time. There's nothing that you can do to control the outcome, okay? And the key to me getting primary time wasn't something that I did to get primary time, okay? I want to be very clear about this. That was not my mindset that I'm going to get primary time. When I found out about the boys, I was student teaching, okay? I was in the middle of student teaching when I found out. That following fall, I got a job as a teacher, okay? That following year, I bought a house. So the things that I was doing to become primary parent that put me in the position that I could handle it, the position that I could accept that role, I was doing things to improve my life. I was still living my life. I was improving my life. I wasn't focused on getting more time. I wasn't focused on getting them away from her. I wasn't focused on the co-parenting part of things. I was focused on, what do I need? And without even realizing, this wasn't something, I wasn't gearing up to get to primary parent status. At that point, when I found out about the boys, we were doing 50-50. So when I found out about the boys, we were doing 50-50, okay? So it wasn't like that happened and then I was like, well, now I'm on a mission to become primary parent. Things stayed the same. After I found out, things stayed the same. I still had to drop off. I still had to see her. We still had to interact. So I found out this earth-shattering news. Some of you found out that your spouse is cheating. Some of you found out that your person had a double life. Some of you might have been abused. These earth-shattering things happen, and then you have to keep living life. You have to keep moving forward. I had to go back to student teaching when I found out. I had to keep carrying on with life. And the thing is that yes, there were big emotions. I felt like my reality shattered when I found that out. And life kept going. Life didn't stop to make sure I was okay. life didn't stop and be like, okay, are you sure you can handle this? It was like, okay, well, what are you going to do next? So what helped me get to the point where I could be, and I'll tell you how it actually happened, but part of it was that, like, even when we weren't together, even when, like, that was me going to the doctor's appointments, it was me showing up on time, it was me giving her, and I remember her saying this to me specifically, that, like, she was waiting for me to bail. And I just kept showing up. I kept being on time. We would get into an argument, we would get into a fight, and I kept showing up. I didn't ask what I needed to do. I didn't ask what she needed from me. I just kept doing what I felt was needed. I kept doing what I felt a dad should do. I didn't base what I was doing off of what she was doing. So without realizing it, I'm setting up the stage where when the opportunity presented itself to be the primary parent, she trusted me. Did she like it? Probably not. But did she trust me? Did she know I was going to do a great job? Yes. Was there ever a doubt that I could handle this? No, because from the start, I was showing up. From the start, I was supportive. Even when we fought, even when we argued, even when we had our disagreements, it wasn't like I didn't waver on what I was doing for the kids. I didn't waver on who I was. I didn't waver on how I showed up. I wouldn't use it against her if I was upset at her. I wouldn't take my time away. I wouldn't, like, stop seeing the kids. There was no doubt in anybody's mind who I was and what my relationship was with the kids. So I know that a lot of you are like, well, I want the magic trick. I want the secret. How did you become this? So we were 50-50, right? We were 50-50, and as we were breaking apart our toxic relationship, as we were officially ending what we were doing, she started seeing somebody else. And then the summer before Elliot started kindergarten, and he's in 4th grade now, she moved in an hour away with her then boyfriend, okay? So she moved an hour away. In our parenting plan, the boys were going to go to school based on my address. So she chose to move an hour away.
Is today Wednesday?
Yes. And then for those of you who are curious, my kid is now checking what breakfast is today. So instead of saying, what are we gonna have? What are we gonna have for breakfast? It's written on the board. He just went and checked. But kind of going back to, so we were 50-50. She moved away. She moved an hour away. And the boys, based on the parenting plan, were gonna go to school based on my address. And then what happened is that over that summer, the summer before Elliot started kindergarten, before that summer before he started kindergarten, she also started a new job. And that job training was like from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock, right? And how that all worked out was that she couldn't have the kids. Like, so what happened was that based on her work schedule, based on what happened in life, she really only had the capacity to have the boys every other weekend. Okay? So this was not something, like, I think a lot of you are hoping that I'm gonna tell you exactly the steps to take and exactly what you need to do to get primary care or to take the kids away from the other parent. I promise you, I didn't do anything with the intention of I'm gonna be primary parent. Most of this was letting go and focusing on my life, focusing on what I needed to do. So that's where a lot of people get not tricked, but like you get false hope that if you document and if you show that the other parent's bad and you show that they're not negligent, you show that they're this or that it gives you some false hope or false sense of control that you can control the outcome. What I have now came from letting go and just focusing on what I needed to do. If I had been focused on her, if I had been focused on, oh, she's the work, she's this, she's that, I wouldn't have finished student teaching. I wouldn't have gotten that job. I wouldn't have then bought a house. But since I continued to do the things that were going to improve my life, I increased my capacity. I increased what I was capable of. So that increased the chance that when the opportunity came up that I could have the boys more, that I was ready for it. That it wasn't some scramble, that it wasn't like she wasn't worried, where are the boys gonna sleep? Where are they gonna live? Where are they gonna eat? Who's gonna be with them? As soon as the opportunity presented itself, they're gonna live with me. I'm gonna be able to take care of them. I'm gonna be working a school schedule, so I'm gonna have the same days off that they have. Everything without me trying to control it lined up. When you are living your life to alignment, when you are living here and here in alignment, life will work out for you. And you're like, well, Jay, I need this, Jay, I need that. You can't control the universe. You can't control what happens. And a lot of you are fighting for control over the exterior. You are fighting for control over what other people say, what other people think about you, what other people do. But there's a path where you let go, and whatever is supposed to happen will happen. Maybe you're supposed to be primary parent. Maybe you're supposed to be 50-50. Maybe you're supposed to be the every other weekend parent. Who is to say that a year from now, I'm not the every other weekend parent? But if I try to control it, then I'm limiting the outcomes. I'm limiting what's possible. Okay? So I know that a lot of you, and this is where people fall into the trap, is that a lot of you try to control what you can't control. Think about this. I want you to hear me. I want you to hear what I'm saying here. A lot of you, and I was one of these people, a lot of you are wanting to the other parent, wanting your co-parent to put them to bed earlier, wanting to take better care of the kids, wanting the co-parent to take better care of the kids' emotions, right? You want them to, feed them better, get them better sleep, and take care of their emotions, right? I think that a lot of you would agree with those three things. That you want your co-parent to feed the kid good food, to take care of their emotions, and get them good sleep, right? When your kids are gone, how well are you doing those things? When your kids are gone, how well are you eating? How well are you taking care of your emotions? How well are you sleeping? So many of you turn your children into your emotional avatar, and you will do anything to help your kids unless it means doing something for yourself. You are so focused on, I don't want my kids to feel this. I don't want my kids to do what I went through. I want my kids to not have to go through this. But so many of you have these inner child wounds, these lessons that you still need to learn. You're still trying to win your co-parents' approval. You're still wanting them to tell you that you're doing a good job, that they see you, that they respect you. I want them to respect my boundaries. I want them to respect my boundaries. But you don't respect your own boundaries. You want things to work out. You want your kids to be okay. You are the leader of your family. Whether you are the mom or the dad, you are the leader of your home. If you are not okay, then your kids will not realize that they can be okay. And then what will happen is that they will start worrying about you. Whether that is explicitly with what they say to you, sometimes your kids might even say, Mom, Dad, are you okay? Are you doing okay? And instead of being a human, instead of opening it up and showing them what it's like to healthily express your emotions, you're like, nope, I'm fine, everything's fine, okay? So to me, so many of you want things to work out a certain way. So many of you only see it, if it goes this way, it's gonna be okay. If it happens this, if I'm primary parent, I don't want the other person to have the impact that they're having. And I was that same way. I thought that she was a bad impact. I thought that the impact that she was having was negative. But it was because I wasn't okay. I wasn't confident in the impact that I was having. And that was because I was constantly worried. I was constantly stressed out. I was constantly anxious. I was constantly talking about it. I was constantly trying to control things that I did not have control over. So how could I feel good about myself? And if I don't feel good about myself, I'm not gonna talk good about myself. And a lot of you are like, well, I make sure I don't say anything bad about the co-parent. But if your claim to fame, if your thing that you're hanging your hat on is that you just don't say anything bad about them, that is the person who gifted you with your children. Without that person, your kids don't exist. And the best that you've got is that you can't say anything bad about them, that means you are willing to stay stuck. You are willing to stay where you are at. And you can't say, I want what's best for my kids and be willing to stay stuck. You can't say, I want what's best for my kids and the best that you've got is that you don't say anything bad about their other parent or that we don't communicate. I cut off all communications, but I want what's best for my kids. I can't talk to them. I can't even see their name pop on my phone, but I want what's best for my kids. Do you know what's best for your kids? You healing the shit that led you to that person. Hey guys, will you close the door, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. If you want what's best for your kids, then you need to be actively healing. You need to be, there's no due date. There's no end goal. There's no finish line when it comes to healing, when it comes to processing your emotions, when it comes to feeling. So many of you are stuck doing the BIF method, brief, informational, formal, friendly, but you're taking your emotions out of things. You don't know how to process your emotions. All other of you are doing gray rock. You're trying to do your best to take the emotions out of it so that you're just putting out a gray rock. All you're doing is selling yourself short. All you're doing is you're adapting the mindset and the stories that you've been told since childhood that your emotions are too much, that your emotions are the problem, when in reality, your emotions are the solution. Your emotions are a superpower. And this is how I'll describe it. It's the fact that if you had a superpower, if you could turn invisible as a kid, it would have been great if your parents tapped into that and helped you develop it. But more than likely, they would have been scared and told you not to do it and not to show people and not to practice it. That's what your emotions are. You don't know how to process your emotions. You don't know how to hear something negative about you and not attach your value to what they say. That's why so many of you are still wanting your co-parent to verbally commit to plans or verbally get on the same page, because that verbal commitment is what you're hanging on. You're wanting that verbal commitment so you feel better about yourself. What if your co-parent is a toxic, narcissistic abuser? How do you protect your peace? You hire a coach that knows what they're doing. I've worked with people who start that same way. One of the women who works for me went through my program, same exact sentence, same exact thought. It doesn't change. Because what if your co-parent is a toxic, narcissistic abuser? You realize that what you just asked, they're the main character. You didn't ask me a question about you. Do you hear that? I want everybody to hear this. She just asked me a question that she's not involved in. You asked me a question that you aren't involved in. What if they're an alien? What if they're this? What if they're that? It does not matter what they are. It matters what you say to yourself. It matters what you do for you. Why would I use my superpowers on him? That's why. You're not using them on him. You're using them for you. Do you see that too? You're so tied to them being the main character. Why would I use my superpowers on him? No, you use your superpowers for yourself. You use your superpowers so that you are superheroes don't worry about, well, I don't want to use it on the bad guy. They don't worry about, I don't want to do this. They use their superpowers. The fact that you're already discounting what your superpower is, you are repeating the stories that you've heard. You are keeping that story down. You are keeping yourself down. This is what conditioning does to you. I'll give you an exact example, okay? My kid, he's 9 now, and he's in 4th grade. And every week, his teacher has this thing called stick slips. And stick slips are this thing that if they start the week with 10 sticks, and if they misbehave, or they talk out, or they do something, they can lose a stick. And the incentive is that they go the whole year not losing any sticks. The whole year, 36 weeks times 5, 180-ish days, right? Without losing any sticks, he'll get a $25 gift card somewhere. That's it. But if he loses a single stick, that's gone. Do you see how that's conditioning them for perfectionism? That if it's not 100%, you're 0. That it's not 100%, you don't get anything? There's so much more gray area that we don't get. And the most beautiful thing happened. My mom was visiting last week, and my son was telling her about it. And she asked this wonderful, wonderful question about the stick slips. All she asked was, well, how can you earn sticks back? And like, it was clear that Elliot had never thought of that. And I know that his teacher hasn't thought about that. How can you earn sticks back? Okay? And what I'm saying here to tell this story is, those of you who are asking, what if they do this? What if they do that? It doesn't matter what they do. The more you are focused on what they do, the less you're focused on what you do. And the truth that a lot of you need to hear is that it's easier to focus on them than it is to take personal responsibility. It's easier to focus on them and blame them than to realize that your life is waiting on you to make decisions. The thing about survival mode is that you don't have to make decisions. It's easier to stay in survival mode because you don't have to make decisions. When you're in survival mode about money, you just know, like, you don't have to make a decision. My money goes to my bills. My money goes to my bills. My money goes to maybe doing something for my kids, okay? If you're in survival mode with your kids, then all of my time and attention goes to my kids. Then all of my time and attention goes to my kids. You're in survival mode, okay? The luxury of coming out of survival mode is that you get to make choices. You get to make decisions. You get to choose where your money goes. You get to choose where your time and energy goes. But a lot of you are so used to survival mode that you don't know how to make decisions for yourself. You want to make decisions that avoid discomfort. You want to make boundaries that they respect without any pushback. You want to do all these things to make things easier. You want to plan out, you want to follow the parenting plan. But the parenting plan is like a speed limit sign. The parenting plan should be like a speed limit sign. Yes, there are rules there, but nobody drives 34 miles an hour in a 35 mile an hour zone. Nobody drives 35 in a 35 mile an hour zone. The majority of people are driving 36, they're driving 37, they're driving 38. And if there's a cop waiting and pulling over everybody who's going 36, what else is that cop going to be doing? What else is that cop going to be doing? All they're going to be doing is pulling people over that go 36. If you follow the parenting plan to a T, and then every time your co-parent doesn't, you're like, well, you're doing this. You're pulling them over for going 36. Most cops aren't going to do anything until somebody starts going 40, 42, 45, when it becomes a serious problem, a dangerous something to something else.
Okay, this video is about another 20 minutes long that is not related to this topic. I already know what about 99% of the guys watching this would be on, and I can't even be mad.
You be stepping out of bounds, you got me fucked up. Got me fucked up. Got me fucked up.
So Jay used DNA test kit and learned that the first two boys weren't biologically his after being suspicious of the third child. His first emotion was anger, but instead of walking away, he chose to fight for equal parenting rights. Today, he has 50-50 custody. And let's be clear, this is extremely rare. Most men, when confronted with this kind of news, they don't even stay. Courts often don't even allow them to. Jay's choice to remain, to love and raise these boys as his son, is unconventional. Here's a photo posted May 2024 where he attended his baby mama's wedding. So she married another guy who I'm assuming is also not the father of the first two boys. He doesn't say, or at least I didn't find a video where he said if her husband is even the father of the third child. The third child, the one who made him DNA test all three. Here's what the most recent research shows. According to fraud.com, In court-mandated DNA tests, about 12% of men are found not to be the biological father. In a 2022 U.S. study, about 11% of men who voluntarily sought testing learned they were not the biological father of the child in question. In the general population, misattributed paternity averages 3 to 4%, with most credible research today placing it closer to 1 to 3%. These aren't just numbers. Behind each percentage is a man blindsided by betrayal and a child whose family identity may be forever shaken. And because September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month, I need to emphasize this. The emotional toll of paternity fraud can be devastating. Too many men fall into depression after finding out a child isn't biologically theirs. Some walk away from families. Some battle silently with shame and hopelessness. And tragically, some see no way out. For many men, the pain is overwhelming. We've seen fathers spiral into depression, others endure years of legal battles, and some just sadly take their own lives when the betrayal felt too heavy to bear. If you're listening right now and you've been impacted by this kind of pain, I want you to hear me. You are not alone. Please reach out. You can dial or text 988 in the U.S. for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Help is always available. As a member of Women Against Paternity Fraud, I'm committed to protecting fathers from this pain and protecting children from instability. Mandatory DNA testing at birth would ensure accurate records from day one, prevent years of heartbreak and financial injustice, and it'll allow the parents to make informed decisions about love, responsibility, and family. Because when the truth is hidden, the fallout is devastating. But when the truth is clear from the beginning, families can build on trust instead of betrayal. A huge thank you to Jay for his courage in sharing his journey. If you are moved by this, join me in advocating for mandatory DNA testing at birth. Together, we can make sure fewer fathers face this heartbreak and more children grow up on a foundation of truth. What are your thoughts on Jay's story or paternity fraud in general? Drop your comments down below. I'll be glad to hear from you. This is Gail at Night. Thank you all for watching and thank you for supporting. Be sure to click the like button and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and set the bell to all.